Thomas Jefferson understood something about banks that most people today have completely forgotten. In 1791, when Alexander Hamilton proposed America's first central bank, Jefferson gave a warning that still echoes across history. He said that banking institutions could become more dangerous to our liberty than standing armies. This was not fear, it was experience. Jefferson had watched how the Bank of England controlled the British economy. He had seen how it funded wars, created debt, and gave enormous power to a small group of wealthy financiers. So when Hamilton proposed a similar bank for America, Jefferson knew exactly what it meant. It was not just a financial idea. It was a shift of power, from the people to the bankers. Jefferson believed that whoever controls the money supply eventually controls the country itself. He warned that a national bank would allow private bankers to decide how much money exists, who gets credit, and how government debt is handled. James Madison agreed with him. Both argued that the Constitution did not give Congress the right to create such a bank, and that doing so would corrupt the young republic from within. But in 1791, President George Washington faced a difficult choice. Hamilton promised stability, strong credit, and economic growth. Jefferson warned of financial tyranny. In the end, Washington approved Hamilton's idea. The first Bank of the United States was born. 80% of the bank was owned by private investors, yet it held all government deposits and controlled the nation's currency. For Jefferson, this was the beginning of a dangerous pattern. He believed that once private banks gain the power to create money, they never give it back. And history proved him right. When the first bank's 20-year charter expired in 1811, Congress refused to renew it. For a moment, it looked like Jefferson's ideas had won. But the very next year, the War of 1812 created financial chaos. The government ran out of money, the currency collapsed, and credit disappeared. Suddenly, the idea of a central bank seemed necessary again. In 1816, Congress created the Second Bank of the United States, stronger than the first. This bank dominated the American economy until President Andrew Jackson decided to fight it. Jackson believed the bank was corrupt, favored the wealthy, and threatened democratic power. He accused the bank's president, Nicholas Biddle, of manipulating credit and influencing politics. Biddle responded by restricting loans and creating a financial crisis to force Congress to support the bank. Jackson refused to give in. In 1836, the Second Bank's charter expired, and this time it stayed dead. For the next 77 years, America had no central bank, and during those decades, the country expanded westward, built railroads, industrialized, and grew into a global economic force. But the pattern Jefferson predicted returned once again. 1907, a major banking panic hit the nation. Banks failed, markets collapsed, and the economy almost fell apart. This crisis gave bankers the perfect opportunity. In 1910, 7 of the world's most powerful financiers secretly met on Jekyll Island. They wrote the plan for America's next central bank. In 1913, while most of Congress was away for Christmas, the Federal Reserve Act passed with little debate. President Woodrow Wilson signed it immediately. But this time, the central bank had no expiration date, no 20-year limit, no chance to be voted out. It had permanent power. And this is where Jefferson's warning becomes painfully true. The Federal Reserve today creates money out of nothing. It sets interest rates for the entire country. It decides which banks survive and which fail. It controls the value of the dollar, yet it is not fully controlled by the government. Regional Federal Reserve banks are owned by private banks, which earned guaranteed profits from the system. Jefferson would have recognized this instantly as exactly the danger he warned about. Since 1913, the dollar has lost more than 97% of its value. Prices rise, wages fall behind, and the average person struggles to keep up. This is not an accident. It is the predictable result of constant money creation. In 2008, millions of Americans lost their homes in the financial crisis. But behind closed doors, the Federal Reserve gave $7.7 trillion to the big banks that caused the problem. They were rescued. Ordinary families were not. This is what Jefferson meant by privatizing profits and socializing losses. From 2008 to 2020, the Federal Reserve created more money than it had in the previous 100 years combined. 7 unelected officials decided the value of every dollar Americans earned or saved. And every time a crisis happens, whether in 2008, in 2020, or beyond, the Federal Reserve gains more power. Jefferson warned that banks could destroy liberty from within, long before any foreign enemy could. He believed that if money creation remained in private hands, ordinary people would eventually lose everything, while a small elite gained enormous control. And today, his warning feels more real than ever. The Federal Reserve operates with more independence than Congress, the President, or the Supreme Court. It controls interest rates, money supply, and national debt, yet faces almost no democratic oversight. Jefferson believed that the power to create money should belong to the people, not to private financial institutions. But America ignored his warning. We still ignore it today, and the consequences keep repeating. Crisis after crisis, decade after decade. Jefferson saw the danger clearly. Banks could become more powerful than armies. They could shape the future of the nation through control of money itself. His message remained simple. If the people lose control of their currency, they lose their freedom. And that warning is more important now than ever before.